In this video, we're going to talk about the balanced scorecard. Now, a balanced scorecard is a way of measuring the performance of a company. And in traditional companies, and still the most common way of measuring companies' performance is to look at financial performance measures. So companies will examine things like their profit, maybe their earnings per share, I'll call it EPS, maybe their share price, maybe return on investment, ROI, return on equity. These types of things are common measures of financial performance. And so what happens in a lot of companies is they use these financial measures to determine how the company did, and in turn to determine how the managers and employees of the company did. So if we had a big profit year, we'd say, oh, the manager did a great job. And if we had a down profit year, we would maybe blame the manager. But a lot of times bonus systems are tied into this. So higher profits means more money for the manager and their employees. Higher share price, very common tool is in a public company is to offer stock options. So the higher the share price, the more money the people who own stock options make. And it makes good sense, right? If I'm an investor in a company, what do I want? I want my company to make a lot of profit. I want the stock price to go up. So if I incentivize the manager, if I give this incentive to the manager of the company that they have a lot of stock options, they want the stock price to go up. I want the stock price to go up as a shareholder. We match. So financial measures are really, really commonly used uh, in measuring company performance. But there's some problems with it, and the balanced scorecard seeks to overcome these problems. So some problems with using only financial measures. The first problem is called myopia. And what myopia means is short-sightedness, which I'm just going to call short-sighted. If I look at financial measures of profit or earnings per share or share price, the share price changes every day. So every day I'm living and dying with the share price. Profits are reported every quarter or every year. These all tend to be short-term measures. And what that means is it incentivizes a manager or an employee to pump up whatever they're getting measured on in the short term, cash out and get out. There's a phrase called pump and dump. It's really a common phrase where people try to pump up their stock price artificially. They sell their shares and then they get out and they make a lot of money. And so financial measures sort of create a system where this is possible or where this can happen, this sort of short-term outlook versus going after more long-term or longer-term goals. Other problems with this type of system, it really focuses on top managers. So I'm going to say top focused. What do I mean by that? Well, if you're the frontline employee of a McDonald's sort of selling burgers, really, if you get incentivized by earnings per share or profit sharing, it's so far removed from you, you may not have much control over it. And so only the top people can really be reasonably incentivized by financial measures, right? If you're the boss at a company, absolutely, buck stops with you, whether it's profitable or not, kind of stops with you. But frontline employees have a pretty tenuous relationship to profit. I have a cousin that works for a company, and he got stock options, and he's in the marketing wing of this company. And so he does marketing work for them, and the stock price rises and falls, but it's really not that closely related to the work he does. And so his stock options aren't actually really a great incentive for him. So this financial measure isn't a great incentive. What would be a good incentive would be to say, okay, well, how many times do you as a marketing manager for this product get mentioned in the media? How many times does our product get mentioned in the media? That would measure if he's doing a good job, and that's how they should incentivize him. So financial, one of the other problems with just choosing financial measures is focused on the top, and when you choose to evaluate middle people based on this, it doesn't kind of work. There's a bit of a disconnect there. So those are two key problems with the balanced scorecard. Myopia, short-sightedness, being the number one. So what does the balanced scorecard try to solve just using financial measures? How does it try to solve this? Well, it does it by measuring more than just financial. It measures a learning and growth perspective. It measures a internal processes perspective. It measures customer perspective. And finally, it does measure a financial perspective. I'm going to put these in boxes. These are the big four kind of broad balanced scorecard categories. And the theory of the balanced scorecard goes, look, if we just measure financial outcomes, that's kind of measuring an end result. And because of that, let's see if I can change my pen color. Because of that, financial is considered a lag indicator. It lags behind these other indicators. These three, learning and growth, internal, and customer, these three are called lead indicators. And we'll talk about what that means in a minute. But let's think about the things we might measure under learning and growth. So under learning and growth, I might measure something like employee training, right? My employees need to be trained. If I measure employee training, that's going to create for more internal efficiencies. So again, if I sort of try to drive learning and growth, more employees are trained, that's going to make my internal processes more efficient. So it's going to lead to better internal processes. If my internal processes are more efficient, it's going to lead to more customer satisfaction, and that in turn is going to lead to better financial outcomes. So here's an example. Loan processing, right? Where we work for a bank, we're a banking company, and a lot of people come in looking for loans, and it can be a frustrating experience. And of course, the banking industry is customer service at its part of its core anyway, and the loan processing process is a customer service process. So let's say we learn at our bank that customers are not satisfied with how quickly or accurately loans are being processed. All right, so we want to perform better as a bank. We want to have a better bank. So what do? We train our employees to process loans more quickly. A sign that that's working, we measure the loan processing time. That's a sign that our internal efficiency is getting better. So again, if I train my employees, and let's just say I put 100% of employees through an employee training program, that's going to result in reduced loan processing time. Let's just say loan processing time goes down by 10%. That's going to lead to increased customer satisfaction and retention, hopefully. And maybe not even loan processing time goes down. Maybe errors go down by 10%, let's say. Increased customer satisfaction, how do I know that? I might measure it on customer surveys. Customer satisfaction goes up by 5% as a result of these new loan. And theoretically, if I have happier customers, I'm making more money. So let's go back to the beginning of the example. I've got a company, we're a bank, we process loans. We decide that we're not processing loans efficiently enough, we're having too many errors, and it's taking too long. So what do I do about it? Well, I train my employees and I measure it. It's really important that I measure it. I say, okay, it's important that I get 100% of my employees trained. If I get 100% of my employees trained, loan processing time ought to go down, error rates ought to go down. If that happens, customer satisfaction ought to go up. And if that happens, I ought to be more profitable. This is a very narrow view of a balanced scorecard, but companies would do this on a company-wide basis. And it's really important, not only that they measure things in each area, but that they hold somebody accountable for it. So they say, okay, we need 100% of our employees to be trained. Joe, you're the lead of our HR, you're the HR manager. It is your responsibility. If 100% of the employees get trained, you get a bonus. If 90% get trained, you get maybe the lower bonus or no bonus at all. And if it's only 80, you're fired, or something like that. You get punished. Same thing with internal processes. Okay, loan processing time's going down. We hold somebody accountable for that and we measure it. Now, challenges with the balanced scorecard are many. One, financial measures are really easy to get, right? Profit, you look at the income statement, it's already sitting there. Earnings per share, share price, those are all available items that are just 2 seconds, right? It takes you 2 seconds to collect that data. If I'm going to track my learning and growth, my internal processes, my customer, and my financial, all of a sudden I have just more than doubled, probably more than quadrupled the amount of data I've got to gather, the amount of work I've got to do. And so that's challenging. And so, well, the Balanced Scorecard overcomes a lot of those financial problems. So these are the problems that the Balanced Scorecard tries to overcome. It creates its own set of problems. And the biggest set of problems created by implementing a Balanced Scorecard system is the cost and the time to do it. Right? It's expensive to gather. Like I said, you're gathering at least 4 times the data just a financial measure system would use. It also takes a lot of time, right? You're digging around, you're gathering all this data. It's very expensive. The other challenge is you might choose to do all of this and then nobody buys in, you know? So they say best practices here are to incentivize each level of the Balanced Scorecard. And again, if you do a good job of incentivizing learning and growth, internal processes, and customer perspective, the financial perspective ought to follow. And we ought to be able to draw a link between each of those areas. So this has been a little bit of a primer on the Balanced Scorecard. I would call this a very introductory primer, but hopefully you've gotten a bit of a flavor for it. The idea, again, learning and growth. If you focus on that, that's going to lead to better internal processes. That's going to lead to better customer outcomes or better customer response. And that's going to lead to better financial results. So again, Balanced Scorecard says, why don't we focus on the 3 on the left rather than focusing on the 1 on the right? Why don't we focus on learning and growth, internal processes, and customer? Those are things we can control. Those are things I can focus middle managers on and even lower frontline employees on. I can say, okay, you're going to be responsible for doing this. And because of it, it sort of lessens the focus on short-term, short-sighted goals and more the long-term outlook of the company. So that's the Balanced Scorecard in a nutshell. Again, this is just a very introductory beginner's look at the Balanced Scorecard. That's it for this video.